from various aspects of our course, we are going to discuss the first and second functional element of solid waste management system. We had discussed in introduction that we are like having almost six functional elements in solid waste management, and those six functional elements are uh, shown over here. I think it's much more visible now. And the first one is waste generation, which is very important functional element. If we don't know the quantity of waste being generated in our communities, we won't be able to handle that quantity, and we won't be able to convert our waste or even collect our waste, and all the functional elements which are followed by waste generation rate would not be achieved in a way that we need to do. So, waste generation rate is a very important functional element, and we need to put a lot of efforts in finding or determining the waste generation rate in our communities or in our municipalities. So, we will be discussing the basics of waste generation rate, which factors are affecting the waste generation rates, and different comparison of different waste generation rates across the globe as well. What are the international practices in terms of waste generation rate calculation, and followed by the storage of that generated waste. So we would be discussing these two functional elements today, and later on we would be moving on to the remaining functional elements as well. Municipal solid waste generation encompasses activities in which materials are identified as no longer being of value and are either thrown away or gathered together for disposal. It's very much like the definition of waste. So once it is declared that this thing or anything is waste, it comes into the waste generation. Municipal solid waste generation rates estimate that the amount of waste created by residences or businesses over a certain amount of time, day, year, or whatever the scale is being used by the researcher or the identifier. The quantities of municipal solid waste generated vary on daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, and seasonally. And the expression of unit generation for the waste generation are household if we are finding out the household level waste, we would be using kilogram per capita per day as a basic unit. If we are going to determine the total waste being generated from a certain community, that would be calculated in terms of kg per capita per day. More or less, in all categories, there are similar units, and we in our introductory lecture had discussed many other units as well in terms of hospital and agricultural and industrial units as well. But we are focusing on domestic waste in this lecture. Street sweeping waste would be calculated as kg per kilometer per day. Drain cleaning waste, again kg per kilometer per day. These are the basic units which are being used in the solid waste management systems in different municipalities, and internationally these are recognized as the basic units of waste generation rate. So it's upon you whether you are going to find out the waste generation rate on daily basis, weekly basis, or monthly basis, or even seasonally and even yearly basis. It depends upon your study that what kind of data are you wanting to generate in terms of the management of that solid waste. So here are basic units of waste generation. First of all, we have residential areas, which are the basic contributors towards the waste generation rate. After that, we have street sweepings, drains, desilting. These are again municipality services, and these collect the waste which has been generated and thrown away in the streets and in different drains. That would be contributing towards the waste generation, total waste generation of the day as well. So it's also a source of waste generation rate. Then comes the commercial area, where the commercial activities are generating waste and sending that waste to the municipality system. Then comes the construction and demolition waste. In if we move around in a city, it is very pertinent that there are many activities regarding demolition of existing structures, infrastructures, and construction of new buildings as well, or maybe the repairment of the existing infrastructure as well. So it is also contributing towards the waste generation rate, and it is also contributing on daily basis. Then comes the institutions waste. For example, in a community, we may have various schools, community schools, colleges, universities, hospitals, offices, and many other institutional activities. So these are the units which are also contributing towards the waste generation in that community. So we would be planning, or we would be thinking of these facilities as well as waste generator. And finally, we have agricultural waste. Agricultural waste or the green waste may come from the homes, houses, households, as well as from the horticulture authorities, which are furnishing your cities with green belts, different parks, stadiums, and many other sports events, hosting avenues. So all these types are the basic units of waste generation. Whenever we are going to calculate the waste generation rate in a community, we must think all these factors along with some other local feature as well, if it is present in some vicinities. So all these places, along with the public places, like you have bus stands in your cities, you might have a holy or religious public place, you might have parks and many other public places which are accumulating the public at a single place, and as a result there is a huge generation of waste over there as well. So do you consider that there can be some factors which are affecting the waste generation rates? So like it's very basic terminology, waste generation rate, but it is also being affected by few factors. uh, can any one of you share some of factors which are affecting the solid waste generation rates? According to your thinking, what factors can affect the solid waste generation rate? We may have two to three candidates which are sharing different factors, and later on I would be sharing the unlisted factors. Ji, please.
सर जो इस प्रोसेस को स्पीड अप करे या फिर इसको स्लो डाउन करे?
Which are causing the waste generation, no matter it is being speeded up or in normal speed. Once the waste has been generated, it comes to your stream and you have to manage that. So we are discussing the basic factors which are contributing towards the waste generation rates.
सर ये सबसे पहले तो उस एरिया के भी डिपेंड करता है कि उस एरिया में पॉपुलेशन किस टाइप की है और उनकी जो है वो
population is one factor. You just
और सर
name
उसके बाद एरिया
you
की
just
मैनेजमेंट
have to name
कैसी है?
those factors. Sorry.
और सर सेकेंडली हम ये देखेंगे कि उस एरिया की मैनेजमेंट कैसी है, सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट,
All
क्योंकि अगर
right.
मैनेजमेंट
Services being provided over there. Any other?
सर पब्लिक का एटीट्यूड भी मैटर करता है कि वो
Public attitude matters a lot. Public attitude matters a lot. Yes, it's the basic factor which affects the solid waste generation rates. Until unless public doesn't want to send a thing into the waste stream, it doesn't come in the waste stream. And once their cooperation is with you, uh, you would be like having a fantastic job at waste generation rate calculations, because there would be very less waste being generated, and people are tending towards using the basic terminologies of reduction in waste, reuse in waste, and they are going towards the recycling through their own segregation patterns as well. All right, who else was sharing something with the participants?
सर कम्युनिटी का लाइफ
सर
स्टैंडर्ड सर
Community ka size, again, once again, it's the total population. Yes, very good. Shazre, would you like to share something?
या सर लेजिस्लेशन
Legislation is a very important parameter in terms of waste generation rate factors. If your local legislation is not allowing the public or an institution or the commercial waste generator to send the waste into the waste stream in his desired manner, that would be the basic factor as well in terms of resisting or prohibiting the waste generation. Very good. Any other one? So most of the factors have been discussed by the participants themselves. I would be just enlisting a few more factors which are affecting the solid waste generation rates. These might be the in terms of legislation. Once again, the basic unit in terms of waste generation rate factors. We need to develop policies and legislations regarding the waste generation and waste categorization and the uh, responsibilities of each and every individual in the town. Then comes the source reduction practices, which were shared by some of the participants as the public cooperation. Then comes the climatic conditions. If we are facing few climate variations, then there would be a pattern in there would be a change in the waste generation rates pattern as well. So it's also a factor which affects the waste generation rates. Time of the year, seasonal variation also come across when it is like solid waste generation rates case. Then comes the habits or the social and religious customs in a region. There can be the holy month of Ramadan. There can be the event of Holy Eid, and we may also observe the celebration of Christmas, Diwali, and many other religious events in different communities. So these events are also the basic contributors or the factors towards the waste generation rates. People change their habits during these religious events. They start practicing a little bit like in they are contributing towards the waste generation in a different way on these events. Then comes the educational level or the public awareness. Yes, it is also again under the umbrella of public cooperation. Economic status is also a very important waste generation rate factor. If we have high income, there would be more packaging, there would be more packed food, there would be more activity, and that would be resulting in more generation of waste. Low income areas and middle income areas, a number of type of commercial and industrial operations in that community. Then comes the where urban or rural area, whether it is urban area or the rural area, again it comes under the economic situation as well. This is very important factor in terms of waste generation rates calculation. If we are scavenging or segregating the things or the recyclable materials, it also affects the total quantity of waste as well. No matter it is being conducted formally or informally, but it contributes towards the reduction in solid waste generation rates. Extent of recycling on industrial level. How many industries have been set up in a community to recycle the segregated materials? If it is a trend in terms of recycling industries, then it would be contributing towards minimizing the total quantity of waste. But if there is absence of such industries, then the total quantity of waste would be higher as compared to the previous case. So it also affects the waste generation rates. Then comes the use of kitchen grinders in terms of many kitchen activities. Kitchen is the basic units, one of the basic units in terms of waste generation contributors. And if we look at the entire community or entire city having a population of uh, 3 to 4 million or maybe 10 to 15 millions in terms of Karachi and Lahore, then it would be a great factor in terms of waste generation rates. Frequency of collection once the waste has been generated and sent to the it is a secondary factor, but it plays a role in changing the waste generation rates. How it plays the role in changing the waste generation rate? It is like if we collect frequently the waste from any community, the community would be thinking of that whatever is coming in the waste stream, that must not be segregated, or we must not panic regarding the source reduction, segregation, or recycling type thing, because the community services are being provided and the waste is being collected on regular basis. So what's the point of like if we have not aware them in terms of the environmental pollution and in terms of environmental sector, then they would not be thinking of these source reduction and reusing and recycling practices, because they are not aware of the later effects of these generated material, and they would be happy with the collection frequency, that if we collect the waste on regular basis, they would be sending more waste to the storage points. And if the community has not established, or the municipality has not established those facilities in terms of segregation and other activities for recycling, then it would be a very huge quantity to manage in terms of the solid waste management systems. And if the collection frequency is low at a point, and the waste is being accumulated on daily basis over there and not being collected on daily basis, then people would be thinking of generating or sending at least less waste to that point, because it is already filled with the already generated waste. So it would be contributing towards the waste generation as well. Legislation, again, we have discussed as a first point, and the public attitude is the foremost uh, waste generation rates factor. No matter you have installed the best waste management system in your town, until unless the people are contributing towards the waste management system, you won't be able to operate that waste management system effectively and successfully. It is only 1% with the technology, and I believe that it is 99% the public attitude, which must be with you, and which must be in favor of your system. and otherwise you won't be able to manage that solid waste successfully. So these are the basic or very common factors which are affecting in terms of increasing or decreasing the solid waste generation rates in a municipality. Whenever we are going to calculate or identify or determine the waste generation rate in a society, we need to discuss or we need to think of these factors first, and then we need to come in the field and start calculating the waste generation rates in that community. Here we have a graph in which considering all these factors, the waste has been calculated over the time, and this graph shows the timeline in terms of decades at the x-axis, and the total quantity being generated by a single candidate in a day is shown over here. So it is basically the waste generation rate in terms of waste being generated per day. And at the extreme right side, we do have the total quantity in million tons, which is being generated by the by the residents, and it is like it is being calculated over the time period of the same uh, decade system. And the source of this information is obviously US EPA, and they have calculated their waste behavior or waste generation rate throughout the system in since 1960 or even maybe before that. And this graph is depicting the values since 1960. We can see that there are two things. The bottom line or the total generation in million tons is being shown or being exhibit over here with the blue curve, and the yellow curve is depicting the total solid waste generation rate per day by a single person. So in 1960s, we can observe that there was the waste generation rate pattern of 2.7 pounds per person per day. So almost 1.25 or 1.5 kgs per person per day, and it has increased in 2005 up to 4.7 pounds per person per day, which is almost 2.2 or 2.5 kgs per person per day. You can see the change in the waste generation rate over the years. This is the timeline, which is showing the change in average. This is the average value of a single US citizen who produces or generates the waste. Moreover, it is also depicting that the higher income areas have very high generation rate of the waste, and this is the total quantity which is being generated in US according to this graph. Here we have in 1960 they calculated 88 million tons of waste on annual basis. Then they had 200 and almost 40 tons of the total quantity in 2005. These are the annual basis readings, and we can see a clear difference with respect to time. As the waste generation rate goes higher, the total quantity also goes higher. Here we do have some other factors which are studied by the US EPA. They have categorized the waste in different streams, and then they have generated this graph of same data we discussed in previous slide. I can show you the slide as well. They have segregated things from this waste, this total quantity of waste, and they have shown over here those things in terms of recovery for the compost component of recycling. This is the part which is being recycled in terms of biological recycling. Then comes the recovery of recyclable materials. Then comes the blue line, which is the combustion of the waste. They have like sorted out the combustible waste from the total waste, and then there might be energy recovery through incineration or gasification or whatever technology is being used. And finally, the remaining quantity of waste has been disposed or was being disposed to the disposal site or the landfill site. You can see a clear difference, and it has decreased after 1990s. That they were sending initially they were there was there was an exponential increase in terms of disposal to the landfill sites, but after 1990s and many other in those decades we had many other protocols in terms of protecting the environment. So we can observe that they have even if their waste generation rate has increased or has reached up to 2 kg or 2.5 kg per person per day, even then they have managed to reduce this total quantity of waste which is being sent to the landfill sites, and they have increased this portion of their combustion recovery through recycling and composting type recycling as well. So all these categories are showing an increase in the trend, and the disposal to the landfill site is showing the decrease in the trend. So it shows that there are technologies or processes in place which are managing the solid waste effectively in their communities. And this picture shows the low income areas, waste generation, storage and collection frequency. It can show you all the factors which are called as functional elements in a solid waste management system. Like you can find out each and every functional element over here. Solid waste has been generated, solid waste has been stored, solid waste has not been collected, solid waste has not been sent to the transported to the transfer station or the landfill site, solid waste has not been sent to the recycling or the recovery technology facilities, and solid waste has not been disposed of properly. So all of the factors are like only waste generation rate has been like in the in a category that can be observed as a favorable thing, that we can measure the total quantity of waste, and it is very easy to measure the total quantity of waste from this point, and we don't have to roam around the entire city. But at the end of the day, all other five functional elements are being fulfilled in a negative way, and this is the dilemma of our societies and towns, that those societies and towns are choked when it rains or precipitates due to this solid waste accumulations in different at different points of the city or the town. And even if we won't be like managing the solid waste effectively, these would be piling up the towns and the cities around us, and it would be like hindering the daily routine activities in terms of mass movement, or even there might be an emergency regarding the medical emergency during the course of rainfall, and the city is choked and you cannot move around to the medical facility. So it would be contributing towards a lot of problems in the city if not managed properly. We have to establish, it is like the need of the hour, that we have to establish or manage the solid waste effectively. Here are some other graphs which are showing or providing the comparison between the different countries in terms of their solid waste generation, total quantity of municipal solid waste which has been generated in tons per day, and this has been provided by the World Bank. We can see the US as the leading waste generator in the world, with almost 500 to 600 plus million tons waste is being generated on daily basis. Then comes the China, Brazil, and we are not like in the list. Even if we look at the this blue line, India is also contributing to the waste generation on a very larger scale. Like they are contributing towards waste generation rates in terms of many tons per day. Here we can see a very interesting graph. This graph shows many information in a single view. There are various countries which have been enlisted at the x-axis, and there are percentages on the y-axis, and these percentages are showing the composition of municipal solid waste in these countries. And the color code of each bar is showing different items which are being listed over here as a legend of this graph. We can see metals, glasses, glass, plastic, paper, and organic waste in all these bars. The quantity or the percentage is varying in each bar, and we can analyze and think of the nature of waste in each country. For example, in China, we do have a lot of waste in terms of other waste category. In Singapore, we do have organic waste, but we do have paper waste as well. In Japan, we do have a lot of paper waste, but very less organic waste, too much plastic waste, glass, metal, and other waste. In Indonesia, we have a lot of organic waste, paper, plastic, and other waste are nominal. In many other countries or regions, we can see the difference in the waste nature. So it is a very interesting study that they have shown many information in a single graph, that they are showing the composition of their waste in different regions. They have studied or collected the data from different countries, and now they have segregated all those percentages in terms of the individual components of the solid waste system. Then there is another interesting graph which is showing the categories in terms of different sources of production of waste. For example, household level along with many bars. This is the household level waste, but being shown with different bars, and these different bars show the different components of the solid waste. For example, we do have general waste, plastic bags, metals, glassware, and sharps, etc. So at household level, we do not have many contributors in terms of sharps, but at hospitals, we may have the increased quantity of sharps. All right. At hotels, we don't have sharps, which are being sent to the waste, but we do have general waste and the plastic bags or plastic polythene bags waste a lot in those areas. And at industrial level, we might have these kind of waste, because it is the manufacturer of each and everything. So it's like industries which are coming under the umbrella of industries. We are not specifying any type of industries. We are just collecting them under this single umbrella. Then comes the supermarkets, shops, hotels, and hospitals. We do have many type of waste in these waste sources. So there are different sources with different composition or the different individual solid waste components. Here we have trash per person per year, not per day. This calculation shows the waste being generated by a single person in an year. So it is also an interesting study that they have calculated the waste generation rate by throughout the year. They have calculated the values 365 days in different countries, and then they have managed to present this graph to the literature reviewers in terms of the total trash being produced by the single resident over the course of an entire year. In US, we can see that there are around 700 to 800 kgs, which is the total quantity of waste which has been generated by a single US citizen. And it comes across once again, if we have 365 days in an year, and here we have almost 800 kgs. So we can say that it is almost 2 kg per person per capita per day. Waste generation rate is almost 2 kg. In Russia, we do have a little bit more total waste being generated by a single person with less population. Similarly, Japan, Germany, UK, France, Italy, Spain, and urban India. In urban India, we do have almost 200 or around 200 kgs, which are being generated by a single person on annual basis. So it's once again the study which has been conducted by the World Bank. There are various projects which are being conducted in terms of development and the services in different regions of the world by the World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and Asian Development Bank. Similarly, many other international organizations like JICA and WWF or UNESCO or UNICEF, which are offering various programs in terms of their own sectors to improve or to identify the problems and to improve the solution of those problems. Pakistan is like we are not somewhere in this list. We are generating over 20 million tons of solid waste annually, and this amount is set to double in next 10 years. And this is not a reliable source that we have calculated it effectively, or we cannot say it is the authentic value or the exact value of our waste generation rate or our waste calculations. So we are at the point that even we don't know how much waste is being generated in our cities and how much waste is being generated in Pakistan on a daily basis, on annual basis, and what type of materials are being sent to the waste streams, and what kind of materials can be segregated from that waste, what kind of facilities or industries can be installed or operated in different regions of the country in terms of recycling, what kind of energy recovery facilities can be optimized, what kind of uh, uh, compost facilities or biogas facilities can be operated in our region. So there is a lot of work which needs to be done by the relevant or concerned qualified persons. For example, if we do have environmental engineers in our societies, it is their responsibility that first of all, it is the responsibility of the relevant departments to recruit them, and then it comes to them that they have to apply those skills which are which has been acquired over the years during the course of their degree, and they have to manage this system effectively. This is the very basic point, or just an animation in terms of just to make you realize that if you are going to calculate the waste generation rate, then you are it is very easy to understand that from where the waste is being generated on regular basis and from where the waste is being sent in a huge quantity, and you put your storage containers accordingly, you plan your things accordingly. And if you don't know the situation of the entire city, for example, if we talk about the Lahore, if you don't know what kind of waste is being sent to the waste stream from different locations or different localities in Lahore, you won't be able to collect that waste effectively. You won't be able to select the transportation mechanism effectively. You won't be able to provide them the proper storage facilities. There are a lot of problems which incorporate in terms of solid waste storage, collection, transportation, and disposal. So we can plan our activities very easily if we know the quantity of waste and the nature of the waste which is being generated, and both of these things are related to the waste generation rates. If we know the waste generation rate, then automatically there would be a knowledge which is associated in terms of the nature and composition of that waste as well, along with the quantity or the total quantity of the waste. Solid waste generation rate as an industrial setup is like zero point 0.6 to 2.17 kg per capita per day, and agricultural waste, if we add that waste into the total waste, then our waste would be like a very high quantity on daily basis. Waste quantities in developing countries are low, low income due to the low income, and low income results in lower consumption of the things, and extensive scavenging due to the less opportunities in terms of the employment. People move towards the scavenging, informal scavenging. Waste generation in Pakistan is typical, and it ranges across the range of zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 kg per capita per day in different regions on average basis. And once again, these studies are not conducted on a larger scale. These are mere the uh, values extracted from different literature or the practices from the similar localities in other countries, or some of the waste management systems have established or conducted their own studies on very smaller level. The total waste generated in Pakistan on daily basis is 65,000 tons per day. The classification of the waste between rural and urban area has been shared here. The urban area is contributing more as compared to the rural area, and the urban area is generating 35,000 tons. I don't know this is the exact value of total quantity of waste. We are at a point that we don't know our total generation of the waste as well, and we need to put a lot of efforts, and a lot of work has to be done in terms of managing solid waste. Uh, we do have a lot of cities, and this value is showing only 35,000 tons on daily basis, which is the waste being generated. If we start calculating from Karachi to Lahore, once again, if we rely on the state literature only, I'm not talking about the real or the existing values or the ground reality. If literature says that Karachi is producing almost 10,000 tons of waste on daily basis, Lahore is producing 7,000 tons of the waste on daily basis, and similarly Faisalabad and Rawalpindi Peshawar, Islamabad, almost all these cities are producing almost 5,000 tons of the waste on daily basis. So 22,000 of the solid waste has been generated by these 4 to 5 cities on daily basis. What is the contribution of the rest of the cities? Is it only 13,000 tons per day? Who has calculated these values? Who has assured these values in terms of Sahiwal, Gujarat, Gujranwala, Sialkot, Wazirabad, and even I'm not talking about the uh, Sindh and Balochistan and KPK as well. These are the cities which are in Punjab only. And if we move across the other provinces, so what about Quetta? Who has calculated the waste generation rate in Quetta? And who has calculated the waste generation rate in Jamshoro, Hyderabad, Sakhar, Jacobabad? Similarly, if we come to the Kashmir, if we go to the GB, Gilgit Baltistan, there are a lot of cities, and if we calculate the waste being generated in all those cities on daily basis, there would be a very huge quantity of waste which is being generated on daily basis. We don't fall in the waste generators list on global scale because we don't have the data. It's not like that we are not producing the waste. It's just like we are lacking the data, we are lacking the studies, we are lacking the efforts in the solid waste management system. This system has always been neglected by the management, and now it is high time to rephrase the system and reclaim the expertise in terms of managing the solid waste management system and improving the sanitation facility and providing a very safer and better place for the residents and avoiding those unnecessarily incorporating diseases which are incorporating in our life through the waste streams. So there are a lot of benefits which are in line if we manage the solid waste effectively. Once again, all these information are the literature review based, and I don't believe these values. Collection efficiency is about 54%. Who have calculated the once again who has calculated the collection frequency in all these cities? Increase in solid waste generation rates. While designing a solid waste management system, quantity of waste to be handled in future design periods should also be included while taking the following into account: increase in population. There would be an exponential increase in population in lower income areas, increase in municipal solid waste generation rate, typically 2% per year in low income countries and 3% in high income countries. Increase in industrial or institutional waste, say almost 8%. So we have to incorporate this 10% waste in our solid waste management system as well as in terms of future perspective. We are not able to manage our waste on existing level, or we are not able to manage our waste which is being generated today, and how come we can manage or we can arrange things in solid waste management system regarding the upcoming 20 to 30 years. Service coverage or the linear growth, say 2%. This is the table which is being shared over the years in different literature reviews, and these are the values which I have shared with you, that Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, Peshawar, Faisalabad, all these are contributing towards the total waste being generated in different cities. Generation of municipal solid waste in kg per capita per year in different cities. This is in kg per capita per year. We have discussed similar graph already. Typical municipal solid waste generation in kg per capita per day. Low income countries have this range of solid waste generation. Middle income countries have zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.9 kg per capita per day. High income countries 1.7 to 1.8 or almost 2 kg per capita per day. USA has very high waste generation rate. Similarly, UK, Sri Lanka, and Middle East countries which are contributing to the solid waste. This graph is showing the generation of municipal solid waste by different countries, and this source once again is World Bank. And municipal solid waste being generated by a single person in entire year. Initially, we had an observation of very few countries, but here we have a lot of countries, including the Bangladesh, India as well. So it is almost 150 as an average in entire world, 150 kg per capita per year. So almost zero point 0.5 kg per capita per day. We are destroying our environment, our natural resources, our soils, our freshwater bodies, our surface water bodies, our groundwater storages by polluting the environment, by sending our waste as a open dumping, and which is obviously resulting in terms of medical problems. We can see the such events in various parts of the country, which show that the interaction between solid waste and the water body is very visible. And even if it is water body which is storing the wastewater as a pond system, even then you cannot dispose of your solid waste in that water, because you are adding much more moisture content to the waste, and after the dissolution of all those chemicals in the waste, it would be very easy for the chemicals to leach down to the groundwater. So if you are uh, throwing your waste in a wastewater pond, even then you are contributing towards the groundwater pollution. We need to clean our cities on regular basis and manage our solid waste on effective basis. So this was all about the waste generation rates. We have come across different factors, which we have come across different statistics which are showing different systems. And if we want to calculate the waste generation rates, we had discussed various methods in previous lectures in which WHO recommended the waste collection methods. If I can, I would be sharing the waste generation rate calculation methods with you after this lecture. Moving on to the second part of the study, that is the storage of waste. Once the waste has been generated by a community, it has to be stored for a temporary basis, and then it would be collected, which is the third functional element of a solid waste management system. So we have to store the waste for a while, and then it would be collected, because we don't have much more resources in terms of abrupt collection of the waste. And even if it is being generated at household level, even then you need a bin to store the waste. So the storage is a must thing in solid waste management system. We need to design the storage system. We need to select the containers. We need to select the type of materials which are incorporated in container manufacturing. We need to plan the points or the locations of solid waste management system where we would be placing our containers. We need to regularly monitor those containers in terms of their repairing and maintenance apart from their collection. That is the additional task uh, which would be obviously performed by any other or many other individuals which are appointed to collect the waste. We need extra staff for maintaining the health of the or condition of the containers in terms of their repairing and maintenance and their aesthetics. In if we it needs to be painted out, and placing different marks or the numbers on containers in terms of identifying those containers. A city that cannot effectively manage its waste is rarely able to manage more complex services such as health, education, or transportation. Municipal solid waste management is of utmost importance as municipal solid waste, if not managed properly, becomes the reason of various problems. For example, it becomes the reason of blockage in drains, breeding of flies and spreading diseases, breeding of mosquitoes, shelter and food source for rats, blockage of streets and other access ways, environmental pollution, which includes air pollution when open burning comes across, groundwater contamination through leachate, and land pollution while the open dumping is being practiced in our societies. The fertile land is being converted to the barren land. On-site handling means these functions are concerned with the place where the waste is generated. For residential waste, this means at the household. What is meant by on-site handling of waste? The point where the waste is being generated, in what way we are handling that waste at that point is called as on-site handling, and the basic unit for this is the household level. On-site handling is very first step in waste management. It determines how we handle the waste and how our system is like our system has made us able to handle the waste or aware, made us aware regarding the waste importance. It involves the individual family members, households, and communities, all of whom need to know how to handle the waste properly at this level. And if everybody knows at this level, then there would be a lot of cooperation which is being offered by the communities in terms of segregation. And it's very helpful if the household itself segregates the waste and hands over to the collector or the municipality services provider. It makes very easy for them to segregate further on a larger scale. And if the family members or the household communities don't know how to segregate the waste at source, then it would require a lot of resources when it is accumulated at the transfer station or the disposal site to segregate the valuable materials from that heap of waste. It would be like requiring a lot of resources to do that. So it is very easy and very gentle approach that all the family members must know the importance of solid waste management system. They must segregate or they must store or they must place things separately in terms of only glass, paper, cardboard, plastic, polythene, and organic waste. If we are able to educate our people in terms of segregation or on-site handling, it would be helping a lot. It also includes the movement of containers to collection and back at the place. The collection crew, when comes at a point of waste storage, they collect the container and they move that container towards the waste collection vehicle. Then they put that container to its original position. So it also it is the secondary handling of the solid waste. The first or the primary handling of the waste was at household level, inside the property, inside the boundary. And then when it was stored outside the boundary in the street, it is also being handled by the crew, collection crew, who collects the waste from that point. There are various storage points, residential area or buildings. Similarly, we do have high-rise buildings, low-rise buildings, high-rise buildings. Then comes the commercial area. Similarly, there comes the industrial area. All these points or all these localities need different type of storage. You need to store the waste inside the house in a different way, and you need capacity, or you need a material, or you need a container to collect the waste in the street as a different point of view. In commercial areas or in institutions, you need different types of storage points. In industrial area, you need different points, or you need different storage capacities. So all these sectors require different approaches in terms of waste storage. So it's not like that you have thrown the waste and it is stored at that position or at that place. You need to manage the resources, you need to arrange storage points, you need to optimize the storage points with different uh, with with different like services. And if you manage to arrange your storage points effectively, it would be helping a lot in your solid waste management system. If you are not able to manage or optimize your storage points, you would be providing more resources and more time to the waste collection, and that would be the wastage of your financial aspects as well. So if you put a little bit expenses over the proper storage of the solid waste, it would be very easy to collect that waste from those identifiable storage points rather than roaming around the entire city at different time intervals of the day and night and finding out the waste at different streets as open heap, and then collecting that waste in a manual pattern. That would be like a hell of the activities, and you would be exhausted, the staff would be exhausted, the resources would be eliminated from the system, and you won't be able to operate your solid waste management system successfully. So it is very important to manage your storage points and to optimize your storage points, to identify your storage point, to provide the better facilities at your storage points, to align your storage points with the collection vehicles accordingly in different areas. If it is a storage point of construction and demolition waste, you need to provide that kind of machinery to collect that waste. You need to provide that kind of container to collect the waste. If it is a storage point of the solid waste in an industrial vicinity, you need to provide that kind of capacity to store that waste. Similarly, if it is the storage point of a residential area, and even if it is a high income area and low income area, you need to provide that type of container. So it is a very important parameter. There can be many graduation theses on these storage points only. What kind of pollution being offered by those storage points, what kind of health and safety practices can be practiced at that point, what kind of materials are